Hello, everyone. Welcome to Durrett's Take. It's that time of the week to go for my top 10 games for college football this week in week 11. So let's get started with the big game of the week between number 7 BYU and number 8 Texas Tech, or 10.5 point favorites, noon game ABC. This is a big top 10 matchup. Kudos for game day to go in Lubbock here. This game has a lot of Big 12 title and playoff implications. If Texas Tech loses this game, then there's a chance they may or may not make the playoffs. But if they win, then there's a very good chance because their final two games are super easy, going to the Big 12 championship game. And then for BYU, if they lose, they still have everything in front of them, but it just makes, it gets rid of their margin for error, basically. So this will be a fun game. BYU has made a habit of coming back in games from behind. I will say this: if they get behind in the game again in this game, like double digits behind, they won't come back and win this game. Tech's a different beast than come from Colorado and others. Like Texas' own animal. Now for Tech, their one close game this year was the Arizona State loss, where starting quarterback Barry Moore didn't even play. So if this game comes down the wire, how does he and the team handle that? Since BYU is used to being in close games. Besides Tech keeping Barrymore upright in this game, since backup quarterback Will Hammond's out for the year, um, this game matchup will come down to Texas Tech's elite rushing defense versus BYU's elite rushing offense. So if Tech's defense holds on, the rush defense plays well, then they're going to win. If BYU's rushing offense plays well, they're going to win. So also another thing to keep in mind is that whoever takes care of the ball in this game is going to have a massive advantage, since both teams are really great at forcing turnovers and yet taking care of the ball. So this game will be interesting. I just feel Texas Tech's defense will make the key plays late to win this game. So I have Texas Tech winning 27-20. So BYU covering there. Number 2, you got 9 Oregon, who are 6.5 point favorites, versus 20 Iowa. I was shocked to see the playoff selection committee rank Iowa all the way up at 20, since their best win was against a Minnesota team, 6-3 Minnesota team. But the committee clearly respects their loss to Indiana, since they had that just 5 point loss to Indiana. So if Iowa could play Indiana tough, then Oregon, who didn't play as that well against Indiana, Iowa can make things interesting in this game for sure. Iowa has a style of play where run the ball a lot, bleed clock, play good defense. So Oregon's not going to be in a shootout at all. And since this would be a rainy, bad weather type of game, that could be an advantage for Iowa as well. Despite all of that, though, my gut feeling is just telling me that Oregon's just going to find a way to pull it out. So I have Oregon winning 17-13. Next, number 3, you got Tulane versus Memphis, or 3.5 point favorites. This is a big game for the group of 5 teams. Both teams have some quarterback questions, if you will, coming into this game. Memphis quarterback Brandon Lewis is questionable to play. If he doesn't play, then Memphis has no shot. Has no shot, in my opinion. If he can't, um, and if he can't play, obviously, then Memphis has a good shot. For Tulane, Jake Retzloff struggled last week so bad where he had to get benched. So if he, let's say, struggles early again this game, how long of a leash does he have? That'll be interesting to see. What's also interesting is that even though no group of 5 teams were ranked inside the playoff selection committee's top 25 this week, which is very rare, by the way, Memphis was viewed as the best according to the committee. So it's their spot to lose right now, if they can take care of business and win out. Assuming Lewis is well enough to play, then I like Memphis at home to find a way to get the job done. I either win 27-20. Number 4, you got 3 Texas A&M, or 6.5 point favorites, versus 22 Missouri. If Missouri's quarterback Bo Prabula was healthy in this game, I would have given the Tigers a great chance to get the upset. However, with him being out, the Aggies should win this game. Now, since Missouri has a formidable defense, maybe they can keep it interesting, but I have A&M winning 27-16. Number 5, you get LSU versus 4 Alabama, who is 9.5 point favorites. Both teams are coming off much needed bye weeks, especially for LSU. Even though Brian Kelly is gone as the head coach now, I would not be completely shocked if the Tigers made this interesting game, because when it's game 1 of the interim head coach, those are always, you never know what's going to happen. We saw with UCLA and the interim head coach against Penn State, you just never know. And Alabama is susceptible to losing against mediocre teams, as we saw at Florida State, where they lost, in South Carolina before the bye, where they should have lost that game. So I like the Crimson Tide at home, though, in Tuscaloosa to take care of business. I'd win 24-13. Number 6, you got 5 Georgia, who are 9.5 point favorites, versus Mississippi State. Besides Kentucky, every SEC opponent Georgia has faced this year, it's been a dogfight. Comes down to the wire, and Georgia just finds a way to pull it out, unless it's Alabama. I think this game will be another example of that. Mississippi State can score, and since Georgia doesn't have a strong secondary, I can see both teams scoring in the 30s in this game. Also, Mississippi State in November, to finish their last two games of the regular season, they have to go to Missouri and then host a top 10 Ole Miss team. So if they can get the upset here and then therefore get bowl eligible, then that'll be good for them since they're going to be underdogs in the last two games. And again, making a bowl game year two under their new head coach is a difference maker. I think it would come down to the wire, but again, I feel like Georgia just once again find a way to get a win, either winning 34-31. Number 7, you got Wake Forest versus 14 Virginia, who are 6.5-point favorites. Virginia is thrilled to be the top-ranked team in the ACC, as they should be, in my opinion. But the problem is that they're at 14, so they have no margin for error, which means they have to win out and secure a spot in the ACC title game in order to give themselves a chance for the playoffs, because they're not getting it as an at-large. That's a lot of pressure for a program that is usually not in this position. I know Wake Forest played horrendously last week against Florida State. It was horrendous. But they beat SMU and they played Georgia Tech tough. So if Virginia doesn't play their A game here, then they could be on upset alert here. But I think once again Virginia would just find a way to survive and get another win, either winning 27-20. Number 8, you got Navy versus 10 Notre Dame, or 26.5-point favorites. As I mentioned earlier, there are no group of 5 teams ranked in the top 25. So if Navy can get the upset here, then not only will they jump into the rankings, I would assume, but then become the favorites of the group of 5. However, Notre Dame has been dominant in this matchup over the decade. Therefore, I like the Irish to get the win here. Also, however, with Notre Dame being a 26.5-point favorite, I like the midship to cover the spread there. I have Notre Dame winning 38-17. Number 9, you got Iowa State versus TCU, or 6.5-point favorites. It was start when you get to 9 and 10, and when a lot of teams having to buys. It was kind of hard to find some interesting games, but the Big 12 usually produces. And this game could be interesting. TCU's tend to typically just drop a random game that they shouldn't drop. So if that happens here, I wouldn't be surprised. Although since Iowa State is in a 4-game losing streak of free fall, I would not be surprised if their flaws continue to show up here either. I think this would be a good game though, but TCU would just find a way to get a win, and therefore they'll keep themselves at least mathematically in the Big 12 title race. I have them winning 28-24. And then last but not least, Kansas versus Arizona, who are 5.5-point favorites. This is another Big 12 game that could be interesting. Arizona is 1 win away from bowl eligibility in year 2 under head coach Brett Brennan, so that would be showing good progress there. Make it a bowl game will also be big for Kansas, who last year was 1 win away from making a bowl game. They fell short. For them, and their starting quarterback, senior quarterback Jalen Daniels, his final season, it would be nice for them to make a bowl game to send them out right now. This game is more important for Kansas though, since their final 2 games are at Iowa State and then hosted a top 15 Utah team. This game could be the difference maker in them making or missing the bowl game. I think Kansas will play hard in this game, but I just think, frankly, Arizona's the better team, and I feel they'll handle business at home to get the win here, either winning 31-20. So thank you very much for listening to my podcast today. Please subscribe to my channel to learn about me. As a reminder, continue to watch college basketball now that started this past week, and continue to watch the NBA as the weeks get going there. Thank you very much, and y'all have a wonderful day.